Yo, what up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop. Bringing you another show today. Obviously, got a lot to get into. Um, I got a chance yesterday to watch the All-22 of Ohio State's offense and defense against Penn State. I do want to shout out Menace to Sports for that. They have a great platform over there. Their Patreon, they offer that, so check it out. But anyway, I want to talk about what I learned watching the All 22. Get into some of this scandal, this accusations that's going on with Michigan because I mean, new details keep coming out about this, and honestly, it's crazy. I can't believe it, but listen, if the details are going to come out, I'm going to talk about it, at least what they have so far, and kind of what I expect to see going forward. And then we'll get into a couple other things here regarding Ohio State. So let's go ahead and get started. Obviously, today is October 24th, 2023, Tuesday. Long week ahead of us until we get back to some college football this weekend. And I'm excited for this weekend because I think that Ohio State actually has a tough matchup with Wisconsin. I don't think they're a phenomenal team, but going into Camp Randall at night, Luke Fickle effect, they got a bunch of guys over there that are have Ohio State ties. Even one guy that people will probably remember from recent, Tough Borland. I think he's like some kind of assistant over there. Um, but again, I mean, I do think that'll end up being a good game. So let's go ahead and get into it now. Like I said, the first thing I wanted to talk about was what I learned watching the All 22 because I learned like last year that you pretty much can't know everything that's going on in a football game until you watch the All 22 film and you see like you can see who messed up or who made the play that ultimately resulted in a good play happening. The stats do say a lot, but they don't say everything. So we'll get into that. Before I get into it, if you guys have any questions in the chat or anything like that, let me know. Obviously, like the video and all that good stuff if you enjoy the content. I see Evan already in there. What's up, Evan? Thanks for coming, brother. All right, so the first thing I wanted to talk about was the Ohio State offense. So obviously, 20 points is not a ton of points. In the past, that would have been a losing effort for Ohio State to only score 20 points. But the defense obviously played a phenomenal game against Penn State. So, but the first thing I noticed from the offense was that the offensive line played phenomenal. So this is something that I said yesterday, just from without even seeing the film. I felt like the offensive line played really good. It was even better than I thought, honestly. I feel like Ohio State's offensive line kind of dominated this game. And on the plays where there was like negative run plays and stuff like that, a lot of that fell on the running backs kind of taking the wrong hole or the tight ends not blocking well. Case Stover, it wasn't his best game in run blocking. And then also one of the biggest things that caused negative plays for Ohio State was they're running like read plays where Kyle McCord is supposed to read a defender, but there's no pull option on it, I guess, or he just doesn't know how to do it. I'm not sure, but I mean there was so many times, I would say like 4 or 5 times where Ohio State got tackled at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage, where the guy who Kyle McCord was supposed to be reading is the one who made the tackle. So when that guy's coming off the line and crashing down on your running back, Kyle McCord is supposed to pull that, and there was nobody there to play for him. So, those plays would have been at least positive gains. They ended up being negative. But again, I don't want to focus on the negative stuff too much because I mean the offensive line played great. The pass pro was elite, and then the run blocking they were creating holes. They were doing what they were supposed to do almost every single play. I think that the Ohio State's offensive line woes are a little bit overblown by some of the guys in the media and whatnot. I think that they have a really good offensive line this year. Um, and then the other thing I noticed there was that Marvin Harrison Jr. Played his best game, I think, as a Buckeye. I know I said that yesterday, but excuse me. I know I said that yesterday, but when you go back and actually watch the film and watch kind of what he was able to do, I mean, Marv was really causing problems for them. And some of the things Penn State was doing defensively were never going to stop Marvin Harrison Jr. But at the same time, if they were to just line up with him and man, he was still cooking them at that point. They kind of had Kalen King in hell. I mean, I heard before the game that guy was supposed to be a first rounder. That's what Penn State fans said. That's what a lot of national media said. I didn't see it on film. I think the other corner they had, Johnny Dixon, actually played a lot better, and he did cause some problems. But I mean, even when Kalen King was going against Julian Fleming, he was getting cooked. And I mean, really, I think it was probably Julian Fleming's best game as a Buckeye too, even though the stats didn't show it. He only had one catch for I think like 9 yards. But I mean, he was open, and that's kind of the downside of the Kyle and Marvin Harrison Jr. connection is that Kyle is going to focus on Marv. And some of those times when those balls were not completed to Marv, Julian was streaking down the field wide open for what would be a touchdown if Kyle could make the throw. So I don't know. Again, I'm not going to hold Kyle too much on that because I don't think that he was having a ton of problems reading defenses in this game. If you go back and watch it, he was throwing the ball where he was supposed to throw it. His timing was a little bit off, so that that does probably fall a little bit on reading the defense. But I mean, overall, he was not really making the wrong decisions. Even like I'm sure that you saw on Twitter, but if you didn't, you'll probably end up seeing it. There's a play where Kyle throws the ball to Carnell Tate, like a back shoulder throw. It's incomplete, and then you see Marvin Harrison Jr. running across the middle of the field wide open with nobody within like 5 yards of him. I mean, that wasn't even on Kyle, really. I mean, he took his first read, threw the ball to his second read. It was just a bad throw. That was really the problem. So again, I mean, you can't really see all that stuff unless you actually watch the film. But again, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't think that Kyle played a terrible game, but he was definitely very inaccurate with the ball. Which I mean, that leads me to my next point. I think that Kyle's footwork was better. I did talk about that yesterday, also just from watching the TV copy of the game. Watching the All22 confirm that. I mean, his footwork was a lot better. He was a lot more balanced when he was throwing the ball. Wasn't throwing fadeaways, but I mean, in this game, I feel like was the most inaccurate that I've seen him be with the ball. So I don't know. I don't know, man. Hopefully he can fix that. But just moving on from that, the last thing I want to talk about with the offense in terms of actually watching the film is that this Ohio State team is a lot better at running a gap scheme run game than they are at running stretch. Now, I don't know if that has to do with the offensive linemen. I don't know if that has to do with the running backs being better at it. Definitely, Mayan Williams is a lot better of a gap scheme runner where he can kind of go north and south instead of having to stretch plays out and find a hole. I hope that they stick with some of that. I mean, even if you look back at like the Notre Dame game and the Purdue game, that's where Ohio State had the most success running the ball, was using those gap schemes and getting those linemen, or just basically just creating new gaps as you have a lineman pool, and those types of things also can confuse the defense. But I think that it's just a way to help your running back get downhill doing stuff like that, because your read as a running back is not going to be to move side to side and then cut into the hole. It's going to be to get up to the lineman's heels and then figure out which way you need to go. And I think that will benefit Ohio State if they do more of that. Now, let's get to the defense, because the defensive film was honestly really fun to watch. They were flying around. I mean, again, this defense I feel like has a chance to be one of the best in Ohio State history, honestly. And I mean, hopefully they'll continue playing the way that they are right now. I think that they will, because I think that a lot of what they're doing is not trying to over scheme the talent, and the talent is showing. They have super talented guys. You look at guys like Sonny Styles. You look at guys like Davis Nigbonosin, Denzel Burke, even Josh Proctor. He's one that I think is not talked about enough. Everybody talks about like the freak athlete that Sonny Styles is. In my opinion, I think Josh Proctor is also a freak athlete, just like how Sonny Styles is. I mean, and you see that when he's out on the field, like his closing speed, his ability to, or his range, I guess I should say. I mean, it's phenomenal. I really think that having Josh Proctor on this team, it's way better than not having him on the team. So before I get into the defense here too much, let's see. Evan says Dallin knows how to find the holes. Yeah, and I agree with you. I mean, Dallin is really good at that. I also think Travion Henderson is. And I think Ohio State's offense is lacking because of not having Travion Henderson, and also because of not having Emeka Egbuka. I think those two players were probably more important than Ohio State not having Denzel Burke, only because the guys that stepped in for Denzel Burke played a phenomenal game. And I would say the guys that stepped in for Travion Henderson and for Emeka Egbuka played an okay game. They were not great, but they were not bad. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Again, I think that if they continue to work on the gap scheme and get better at it and mix that in with the the stretch plays that they're doing more often. And then if Ohio State will stop running those replays with like zero intentions of the quarterback ever keeping it, I think the run game can really get going. But I mean, those plays are just not going to work if if you're going to run a replay and leave a guy unblocked and you're not actually reading him, what the hell is your running back supposed to do? I mean, it doesn't matter who you have back there, how fast they are. They're not going to beat someone who's just crashing down the line of scrimmage. Um, but all right, let's get into the defense here. So the first thing I noticed is that Ohio State did a lot of blitzing against Penn State. So one of the things that we've seen from Jim Knowles this year is that he hasn't done a ton of blitzing. He's kind of let the 4-down lineman get after the quarterback and kind of mixed up his coverage as well. But he always said, and Ryan Day always said, that there's going to come a time where Jim Knowles is going to start blitzing. And I love that we've seen it in this game because now it's on film and now teams have to prepare for it, which I think they probably were anyway. But at the same time, Ohio State was just not showing it. The good thing about when Jim Knowles blitzed in this game, though, is that there was not busted coverages. You look at last year, and Ohio State would blitz, but when they blitzed, they would just get picked apart because there would be busted coverage. There would be a one-on-one that was just a super unfavorable matchup. And I think they're doing a really good job of not putting their players in those positions and also not a ton of like zero blitzes. So even when they are blitzing, a lot of the times you still have a guy like Josh Proctor over the top where he can help out if someone does – route up one of your corners, which doesn't really happen this year. Those corners were sticky. I know that Penn State doesn't have great wide receivers, but I don't know that there's a ton of teams in college football that have great wide receivers. I mean, you look at like Ohio State, you look at Washington, you look at maybe like Florida State, LSU, those types of teams, they have really like great wide receivers. But I don't know that there's a ton of other teams in college football that their wide receiver units are just that much better than Penn State's. So I don't know. I think they'll be fine, and especially looking forward to a matchup. Ohio State has Michigan. I don't think that their wide receivers are better than Penn State's. Roman Wilson, excuse me. Anyway, Roman Wilson has been playing well, but I don't really see him getting off on Denzel Burke, Jordan Hancock, Davis Nigbinosin, Jermaine Matthews. I don't see him getting off on any of them guys, so I think Ohio State's going to be fine, and they're going to be able to dial up some pressures. The second thing I noticed in terms of the defense was that it seemed like Larry Johnson kind of cut his defensive ends loose in this game, and I think that maybe some of that had to do with Drew Aller not being a running quarterback or not being super athletic. Because if you watch the guys, they were really kind of getting after the quarterback, and they were not doing that cage rush stuff that they've been doing all year, where they're just kind of hitting the outside shoulder of the tackle and kind of doing a bull rush. They were doing a lot of stunts. They were doing a lot of, spin moves, outside pass rushes. So I really like that he let them go out there and play because I think that you saw the impact. And ultimately that led to 3 sacks from the defensive ends. And I mean, sacking the quarterback has been an issue for Ohio State all year. And I think that that's why, though, they haven't really been trying to get after the quarterback like that. They've been keeping them in the pocket, trying to get pressure on them and helping out their secondary in that way. But I hope that this is a sign that Jim Knowles will start to let those guys loose in games going forward. Now, I will say that if you play against an athletic quarterback, they're going to have to mix something up, though, and do some of that cage rushing too, because there was times where the defensive ends – not even just the defensive ends. There was times in this game where the defensive line rushed the quarterback, and Drew Aller had like 10 yards in front of him, and only one guy there to stop him. Now, typically that guy was a linebacker, and in this game they were able to make the play. But if you look at a guy like maybe J.J. McCarthy or some of the quarterbacks that they'll play down the road, they may not be able to get that guy in the open field. So I mean, again, it is something that's kind of like give and take, but I just think they need to mix it up, and ultimately it'll work out in the end. And I think that JT Tuimoloau right now has 4.5 sacks, which is more than any Ohio State defender had last year. So, I mean, I've always said JT is a first rounder, and he's showing it every time he goes out on the field. But I want to see them continue to cut them loose because in this game, the defensive end that impressed me the second most behind JT was Kenyatta Jackson. He actually got a lot of playing time, and he looks really good. I hope to continue seeing him because I think Kenyatta can be that like superstar defensive end next year, and then this year he can, he can make an impact in big moments. So hopefully we'll continue to see that from Larry Johnson and his defensive line. In terms of the interior, Tyreek I feel like was just doing his job in this game. He was getting some pressure on the quarterback, getting his hands up like he usually does. But the one who was a real problem for Penn State was Mike Hall. I felt like this was probably his best game this year. Obviously, last year he had some really good games, but I mean Mike Hall was really causing problems. He was getting past their center and their guards almost every single time. He was in the backfield getting in Drew Allar's face. So Ohio State's defensive line to me is just solid all around. I've been saying that for this entire year. So, and then moving on to the linebackers, I feel like the linebackers actually played one of their best games this year too, which is, I mean, that was like the weak link of the defense. So I love to see that from them. I do still think that I think that Cody Simon should be. I don't say he should be starting. Cody Simon definitely needs to continue getting reps because I think is probably faster than Steel Chambers. And when he's out there, he just brings a different dynamic. I've always looked at Cody as like a Mike or a middle linebacker, but I mean, he can move, man. There was a play where he blitzed and he got in the backfield and hit the running back like right when they handed the ball off. And honestly, Steel Chambers didn't play bad in this game, so I'm not gonna harp on him too much because ultimately that's what I want to see is our players playing better. I don't dislike or hate any of our players, but Steele's been playing bad this year, and that's kind of been bothering me. But he played really good against Penn State, so I love to see that from them. And then, actually, that was it. So that was all. Again, just watching the All-22, you see everything that happens, and I mean, this was a really good game for Ohio State. They really should have won this game by more, and the All-22 really showed that. They were kind of dominating both sides on the line, and then Ohio State's secondary had everything on lock. The only thing that Penn State really got on them was like if they gave them free access yards where they were playing off and they ran like a little comeback and stuff like that. I mean, other than that, Penn State wasn't really getting anything off on Ohio State. All right, so I want to move on from that. I like to start with Ohio State and kind of end with Ohio State, but man, we have to talk about this. So there's all this stuff coming out about Michigan and this cheating allegations. I want to get into some of the details that have came out, kind of give my thoughts on it, and then what I expect to see going forward. I mean, again, it'll be kind of projection at that point, but basically it's came out now that this Michigan staffer, last name Stallions, I forget what his first name is. I should have had that. Sorry. But anyway, Stallions, this guy bought tickets to 30 different games. I think it was like 11 different Big Ten teams. Bought tickets on the sideline so that they could go there and, this is the allegations at least, they could go there and spy on the opposite team and record their sideline to get all of their cadences down, all of their signs and everything that they're doing. Now, I mean, that's a crazy allegation, but they seem like they have proof. And when I say they, I guess the NCAA, the Big Ten, someone has proof of this happening. All the way up until like the game this weekend, they supposedly have proof that this guy bought tickets to the Ohio State versus Penn State game, and they bought a ticket on each side of the field so that they could record both sidelines. I mean, again, if this is true, I mean, I feel like it has to be true. If this is all proven and they have actual evidence to back it up, I do think this is going to end up being a big deal. I think that Michigan, they will have some kind of serious punishment for this, because when you're messing with the integrity of the game and you're simply just finding a way to cheat, that's something that is always going to be taken seriously, especially on a college level. And then, my buddy Mike is always talking about how this impacts like betting. That's one thing that a lot of people are not thinking about, especially Michigan fans. They're being very nonchalant about this. But like, if you cheated, how many people and how much money did you cheat people out of? I mean, I just imagine someone put a ton of money on Ohio State to win, not knowing that Michigan was cheating. Again, a lot of people are saying like, oh, well, Ohio State was going to lose no matter what, blah, 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 blah. And I do like to focus on Ohio State, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that if they were cheating and they knew what Ohio State was going to do, I don't think that they would have been able to be as successful as they've been the last 2 years. And the allegations perfectly line up with like the complete 180 that this Michigan team has taken. You know, they went from being a 4-loss team 2 years in a row, and then obviously the COVID season was they went 2-4. Jim Harbaugh got a pay cut, was threatened with his job, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, now Michigan's a world beater and they're a playoff team every single year. Again, I don't have more details than anybody else about this, but I'm just relaying the things that I've seen on Twitter. And I don't know. Right now, the evidence seems damning. It seems like there's no way that they're going to get out of this, and ultimately, it's going to fall back on the whole university and Jim Harbaugh. And then, yesterday there was the guy from Buckeye Huddle. I think his Tom Orr is his name. He went through some of his pictures because that's one of his things that he does at the games. He's a credentialed guy. He takes pictures, and he has pictures of um, the guy who was accused of cheating. He has pictures of him standing next to Michigan's defensive coordinator Jesse Minter and Michigan's offensive coordinator Sharon Moore while their units are on the field and he's talking to them. Now, this guy is supposed to be like a low-level recruiting guy, and just from like the flow of the game, there's really no reason for a low-level recruiting guy to be standing directly next to the defensive coordinator or the offensive coordinator who is currently calling plays for their unit, and to be talking to them and telling them what they're seeing. And some of these things were in the first quarter. I mean, again, every team can steal signs, and when I say steal signs, I need to make sure that I'm very clear, because a lot of Michigan fans are using the word steal signs to back up that it's not something serious. Teams can steal signs during a game. You can watch a game, or you can have a guy on your sideline or in the booth, whatever it is, watching every single sign that the opposing team calls and noting down every single play that they do, and you can figure it out during the game. There's nothing wrong with that. That is perfectly fine. And all teams are probably doing that. If you're not doing that, you're dumb, honestly, because if you can figure out what the hell they're doing, then figure it out. However, the issue is that these teams are scouting every single thing that's happening, or sorry, not these teams, excuse me. The allegations are that Michigan has been scouting teams ahead of time, going to their games, recording their sidelines, so they can basically figure out every single play that you're going to do and who's calling the plays. They can figure out everything as soon as the game starts. So basically, if they want to, regardless of what time they want to do it in the game, they can almost call your play with 100% accuracy and just counter it. And I mean, no matter how you spin that, that's cheap. It's cheating. It's against the NCAA rules. I know a lot of people are saying things like, oh, well, this rule doesn't state this, or it's a technicality. I don't think that they're going to get away with that, because regardless, it is an elaborate plan and it was cheating. So I don't know. We'll see what comes of it. I know that I heard multiple fans of teams that Michigan has to play still this year talking about not wanting to play against them, because I mean, why would you give that? Basically, they were saying, like, why would you give them the opportunity to beat you and mess up your season when they're cheating? I don't know. We'll see how it works out. I do think that it's going to come down hard on Michigan, and I think that once all of this comes out, it's going to be even bigger than what we think it is right now, because the evidence that they have already is damning, and supposedly later this week they're supposed to have video evidence of this happening. So we'll see. I don't know if we'll ever get to see that video or that video evidence, just because I mean, it is a real investigation. Like, it's a legal matter, and people don't just put out like legitimate evidence um, of a legal matter, especially while an investigation's going on. So I don't know. Be on the lookout for that. I'll give updates as they come. And I don't know, man. If they were cheating, then I feel kind of validated as an Ohio State fan that our team didn't just get trash all of a sudden, and Michigan didn't just have this amazing level up. I don't know. We'll see how that works out. All right, I'm going to move on from that. Again, just like I said, I wanted to cover the Michigan stuff and kind of go over what we know so far. And then there was one more thing I forgot, actually. There was, in those pictures that Tom Orr at Buckeye Huddle put out, there was another coach that was holding a laminated paper, excuse me, that had like basically looked like signs, like gestures on it. And again, We don't know what that is. It was not the best picture because that's not what he was trying to take a picture of. But all the signs are pointing to they just blatantly were like, look, we need to have an upper advantage. Let's do it this way, and they just straight up cheated. So we'll see how that plays out. Like I said. All right, moving on from that. I don't want to harp on that too much because again, we don't have all the evidence yet. But at some point, we'll know exactly what happened. I was looking at Ohio State's defense, right? So just watching how good they've been this year got me thinking about how they compared to some defenses of the past. So what I compared here was Ohio State's 2023 defense to Georgia's 2022 defense, Michigan's 2022 defense with an obviously if they were cheating, and then Georgia's 2021 defense. So what I noticed in the first 7 games, Ohio State's given up 70 points. So that's 10 points per game. Looking back at Georgia 2022, they gave up 64 points in the first 7 games, 6 points less. And I mean, that was one of the best defenses that I've seen. So obviously that's a good sign. Michigan in 2022 gave up 85 points in their first 7 games. So that's obviously quite a bit more, 15 points more than Ohio State gave up. And this is what surprised me. Looking back at Georgia's 2021 defense, I didn't realize how good that defense actually was. They gave up 46 points in their first 7 games, which is a crazy low number. I'm not sure if there's ever been a contending team to have a defense give up that low of points in the first 7 games, and that included like back-to-back shutouts. So I don't know. Kudos to them what they've done down there. But spinning it back to Ohio State though. So far, like I said, Ohio State's given up 10 points per game. Now, those defenses that I just mentioned, Georgia 2022 finished the year with a total of 13 points per game. The same with Michigan 2022, gave up 13 points per game. And then that Georgia 2021 defense gave up 9.5 points per game. Now, Ohio State currently, like I said, is at 10 points per game. And I think that they've played most of the better offenses that they're going to play. Obviously, they have Michigan and then whatever happens in the postseason that will factor into that. But I mean, as of right now, this defense is on track to be a historically good defense. The one I really should have put on here was Ohio State's 2019 defense. I should have done that. But I would imagine that this defense stacks up pretty well with the way that they were. Obviously, it's a little different in terms of like the superstars you have because, you know, that 19 defense had Chase Young, Jeff Okuda, some superstars like that. But overall, the way that this team is playing as a unit, I think that it's going to be really hard for any team to score on them this year. And that includes Michigan when they go play them in November. And then, so I'm going to move on from that. Like, just again, that was just a little nugget. I like focusing on this defense because they're playing really well. Maybe we'll dig into the offense and see how they compare to some historical offenses tomorrow. Obviously, we know that that's going to be quite a bit less, though. So, you know, we'll look at it though and see how it works out. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about here before I go was Ohio State's red zone struggles. Basically, Ohio State has this Devin Brown package that they created because of the red zone struggles that they've been having. But now the report came out yesterday that Devin Brown's going to miss a few weeks after being injured in the Penn State game on that play where I honestly thought that was probably a touchdown, but it didn't get called a touchdown. I think that it never got reviewed because he got hurt. And I think that they thought he was like severely hurt because he screamed on the field and he looked like he was in a lot of pain. So I didn't expect him to be back next week anyway, just because of how the injury looked. He kind of got his ankle or his foot stuck under somebody and then got rolled up on. But what this makes me curious of is what is Ohio State's plan going to be for the red zone? Because this year so far, their red zone offense has been really bad. And I think that they're going to have to come up with something. At this point, I don't think that what Ryan Day is trying to do is working, especially when Kyle McCord is in there. I don't know. I don't think that they need to switch up personnel other than they need to stop taking the wide receivers off the field. I think that would be the first step. And then, you know, all the beat writers and all that keep saying that Kyle McCord can do what Devin did in terms of like running the ball well. I don't believe that, but that may end up having to be a part of our red zone offense. Kyle McCord may have to read a defender just to equate numbers. Other than that, I mean, they do the package a lot of the times where they take the wide receivers off the field, and then you put in like an extra lineman, an extra tight end. I really wish they would kind of just scrap that, because it's just that's simply just not something that's going to be effective. You're just adding every single defender into the box, and then you're going to try to block them while they're all slanting different directions. It always ends up with somebody coming free, and then you go back and watch the film, and it's like, oh well, this person missed his block, and again, some of those players are being put in terrible positions. Like last game, Kate Stover missed a block on like a 3rd down and 1 from the goal line, and the guy just crashed down the line and tackled the running back. But I mean, again, he was put in a bad spot. Like, how you expect him to reach someone who's lining up directly in front of him and then just slaying or crashing down the line immediately as soon as the ball snapped? Again, he can crash that guy down and create a hole, but that would take a really good play by him. And I just don't think you want to put your guys in positions where you have to make a phenomenal play or the offense doesn't work. So hopefully they'll spread it out a little bit more in the red zone. And honestly, I mean, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. He's 6'4", long arms, can jump, catches everything. I mean, they need to start throwing the ball up to Marv more in the red zone and let him go up and get it. Let him make a play on the ball. Throw it to the back pylon. Let him do what he does. So I don't know. I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if Ryan Day has that plan, but they're going to have to figure something out, because Wisconsin probably has a pretty good defense, and not having Devin Brown means no Devin Brown package. And when that package has not been a thing, Ohio State has been severely unsuccessful in the red zone. So what I plan to do tomorrow, I plan on getting more into the Wisconsin matchup and what we should expect to see from this Ohio State team going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this show up here. Obviously, hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll be here. I'll be live every day at 10 a.m. Talking Ohio State football and anything else that we see going on around college football. And then if you want to find me on Twitter, it's CFB_stop. I put a lot of good stuff on there, some nuggets. So thanks for coming, guys. Have a good day, and I'm out.